Curry's hurt though, Coach. Something grabbed him. He's asking for relief from that bench.
It was this exact moment when every Warriors fan and every fan who loves basketball held their breath. Because after defying all the odds and turning their season around from a record of 26-27 to a record of 48-34, the Warriors had somehow made it to the second round of the playoffs. And Steph Curry wasn't just playing good basketball, he was one of the best players of the entire playoffs prior to this moment.
He'll dance. He'll throw up a shot.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Geometrically, that should not have happened.
Averaging 24 points and 6 assists on great efficiency during the first round against Houston. And whilst those numbers don't sound crazy, considering what we've seen from him in previous years, when you consider the defense he was facing, when you consider the gravity, the relentlessness, and the clutch shot making, Steph was looking like the MVP player we have seen him be for so many years. Unfortunately, that's when disaster struck, as Steph had to exit Game 1 with a hamstring injury. And despite the Warriors hanging on to win an impressive game on the road, that was the only game of the series they would win. And it was a reminder to the entire world how great Stephen Curry is, and just what kind of impact he can make. Because after this moment, in which the Warriors had a 10-point lead 15 minutes into Game 1, the Dubs were then outscored by 56 points over the remaining 4.5 games of the series. Now, we will never know if the Warriors were going to beat the Wolves, but one thing we do know, and one thing we will always know, is when Steph Curry is on the floor, your team has a chance at beating anyone and everyone. And this year was a reminder of that. Look no further than what he was doing in Game 1 of the series against Minnesota. Sure, he only played 10 minutes, but in those 10 minutes, it was pretty clear to see that, like every other team in NBA history, Minnesota had no answer for Steph. He started things off getting a pin down from Jimmy, and with McDaniels so worried about his three-point shooting, he had the lane to drive down and get to the rim. And if you want to know why McDaniels was so worried about his three-point shooting, well, I don't really need to tell you that, but I can show you, as he made the crucial mistake of going under and leaving Steph open for just a fraction of a second, and that is all he needs. Or just watch a clip like this if you want to see the level of mastery from Steph. He gets the screen from Looney. Initially, Gobert is at the level, so he makes the pass to Santos, who then finds Looney, who misses the layup. But the key detail is Looney gets a layup as a result of Steph's gravity. Now, what I didn't show you is GP2 got the loose ball off the miss and then found Steph, who not only happens to be someone with the best gravity in the league, but he's also the best shooter the league has ever seen. And if you want, you can try and let your best perimeter defenders guard him in isolation. And the hilarious thing is, Steph actually mishandles the ball and doesn't really create the separation we normally see, but he is that ridiculous as a shooter that it doesn't matter. There was no reason for Steph to shoot that aside from the fact he is Stephen Curry, and well, that reason is actually better than pretty much every other reason you could think of to shoot. And in just 13 minutes, Steph had already scored 13 points on 5 of 9 shooting and created countless more opportunities against an elite defense in a very hostile environment to play in. And like I said, despite having great defensive players, despite Steph not being in the perfect offensive circumstances, what we saw in that first quarter and a half and what we saw against Houston was no team has an answer for Steph Curry. People thought Amen Thompson and the Houston Rockets would be the answer. Well, they were wrong. And just like people thought the Timberwolves might have been able to slow him down, they would have been proven wrong as well. And more importantly, despite the Warriors having some great players, obviously including Jimmy and Draymond, offensively, this was and it always has been a team held together by the brilliance of Steph. And we saw that on full display after he got injured, because after beating the Rockets in 7 games, the Warriors were up against a worse defense in Minnesota. Yet without Steph, they failed to score over 100 points in the first 3 games of the series. Without the man who makes everyone's life easier, life was well, not very easy. And the numbers reflected this, with the Warriors having the second best offensive rating and sixth best net rating with Steph on the floor, and with him off the floor, the less said about those numbers, the better. And this is the impact of Steph. I've mentioned it before, but it is the knock-on effect. When he is off the floor, everyone has to do more. Everyone is asked to create in ways that they're not used to creating. Look at Brandon Bajemski, Draymond Green, all of these players that benefit from what Steph Curry does with and without the ball. They're just asked to do more. And it's not like they are bad NBA players, but when Steph Curry is on your team, you are just elevated in ways that can't be replicated when he gets injured. Now, there is one part I do want to mention, and it is the criticism of Jimmy Butler after that series against the Wolves, where people were calling him a fraud, talking about how playoff Jimmy Butler wasn't a real thing, how he should have carried the Warriors with Steph injured, and whilst he probably could have done a bit more as a scorer and was at times passive, for sure, the Warriors didn't bring in a 36-year-old Jimmy Butler to carry the team and average 25 points a game. They brought him in to do exactly what he did: bring defense, timely shot making, playmaking, and leadership. And before Steph got injured, the Jimmy Butler Warriors were one of the 5 best teams in the league following the trade. The only reason those expectations had gone higher was because of how good the Warriors had been prior to the Wolves series. But it is unfair to criticize Jimmy for not being the Miami version of Jimmy that the Warriors didn't trade him to be. And if you look at what happened with Steph Curry after trading for Jimmy Butler, he clearly had an impact on Steph, as he averaged 27 points, 5.5 assists, and 4 rebounds on incredible efficiency after the Jimmy Butler trade, which was a significant increase on what was happening before. And that was the impact that Jimmy was having, opening up the floor for Steph, taking the pressure off Steph. Even putting aside the obvious things like his scoring, his playmaking, his dribble drive ability that most people should be able to see, just his intelligence made such a big difference for everyone on the Warriors, on both ends of the floor, and obviously Steph as well. Just look at this play where Steph gets around Adams on the blitz, and watch closely. Brooks is getting ready to help over as Jimmy just bumps him out of the way and gives Steph a free lane. Obviously that's not a highlight clip, but when you make those kind of plays 10 times a game on both ends of the floor, it starts to add up. And even the mental aspect, just for Steph to know that he had someone next to him that could do all of those things and he could rely on in the biggest moments, that just took a burden off him, and you could see him starting to play more freely and the way we have seen him play over the last decade of his career. And that's just the NBA. No one can win by themselves. I don't need to explain that to you. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has 2 all-star level players alongside him and an incredibly deep bench. The Indiana Pacers, I mean, we have seen what they have been doing all playoffs long. Do I need to demonstrate that no one can win alone? But we do know when you give Steph Curry help and another star player, or even depth, he will make that team look special. And we were seeing that in this year's playoffs, unfortunately, before he got injured.